The scars of loyalty and the hidden heroine. In a village where gossip spread faster than lightning lived a girl named Pendo. Her face bore a scar from a childhood accident, and in this small-minded community, that made her an outsider. No man will ever want her, the villagers would whisper. But Pendo wasn't fazed. She lived her life quietly, her heart as deep as the ocean, her patience unshakable. Until everything changed, and she became the center of village gossip. Musa, however, was a different story. He was the village's self-proclaimed king, a handsome, wealthy man with enough cows to throw shade on the sun and more ego than a rooster at dawn. His reputation preceded him, greedy, arrogant, and a notorious womanizer. If there was a woman within a mile radius, Musa would have her number, usually after twirling his ridiculous mustache and flashing that charming grin. When Musa decided to marry Pendo, it wasn't out of love or pity. Oh no, Musa had his eyes on something more valuable than love, or at least this is how he thought, her father's land. With her scarred face, he figured she'd be desperate enough to say yes. But Pendo, desperate? Hardly. When Musa came to ask for her hand, twirling his mustache as if it were the key to unlocking her heart, Pendo was less than impressed. In fact, she took her sweet time thinking about it. Weeks turned into months. The entire village held its breath, waiting for her answer. "Why haven't you said yes?" her friends asked. Pendo shrugged. "I'm thinking. The land might be worth a lot, but marrying a man like Musa, I'll need to pray on it for a long time." Eventually, after much deliberation and maybe a little pressure from her family, Pendo agreed, though she wasn't exactly jumping for joy. "Fine, I'll marry you," she said one afternoon. "But don't think I'm fooled by that mustache of yours." Musa, oblivious to the jab, puffed up his chest. "Of course not, you're marrying me for my wealth." Understandable. And so, they were wed. But if anyone thought Musa would turn over a new leaf, they clearly didn't know the man. Almost immediately after the wedding, Musa resumed his old ways. He paraded his mistresses publicly, and one in particular, a vain, self-absorbed woman named Zawadi, loved flaunting her position. Zawadi and Musa would stroll around the village like peacocks, while Pendo quietly went about her business, ignoring the whispers of pity. At night, while Pendo slept, Musa would sneak out to visit Zawadi, leaving behind nothing but the smell of cheap cologne. The whole village knew, and Musa, he didn't care. In his mind, he did Pendo a favor by marrying her. He often told himself, Pendo's scarred face would scare away any potential suitor. One day, while Pendo was tending to the garden, Zawadi sauntered up, swinging her hips like she was on some invisible catwalk. In her mind, she was way too beautiful compared to Pendo, and Pendo didn't deserve a man like Musa. Poor Pendo, Zawadi cooed, loud enough for the whole village to hear. "It must be so lonely in that big house all by yourself, but don't worry, Musa's been keeping me entertained." Pendo, ever calm, simply smiled. "Ah, Zawadi, you're so lucky. Musa must think you're very special. He's with you for the hour or so." Zawadi fumed. No one talked to her like that. She stormed off, plotting her revenge. Zawadi could not imagine another woman, who in her mind was not as beautiful and charming as she was, with a man that she always wanted to have. She could not understand why Pendo seemed happier and more satisfied with life than she was, even with all the beauty, so she hatched a plan to destroy everything for them all. "If I can't have him, no one else will," Zawadi would tell herself. Cheers to you for following the story up to this point. Please like, comment, and subscribe. As they often say, karma is a... Life had a funny way of twisting stories. A few months after their wedding, Musa suddenly fell ill. His body burned with fever, and his strength faded. Zawadi, along with all of his other mistresses, mysteriously disappeared. They were nowhere to be found when Musa needed them most. except for Pendo. Though Musa had been nothing but cruel to her, Pendo, with the patience of a saint, nursed him day and night. She wasn't doing it out of duty or love, more out of her own moral compass. And then, of course, there was Simba. Simba. Pendo's faithful dog had been by her side since she was a child. The scruffy old dog had once saved her from a snake bite and had since followed her everywhere. If Pendo had a protector in this world, it wasn't Musa, it was Simba. When Musa's mistresses came around, Simba would growl, positioning himself between Pendo and anyone who dared insult her. Now, as Pendo nursed her sick husband, Simba never left her side, guarding her with his loyal eyes. But Zawadi hadn't given up. Furious at Pendo's growing influence in Musa's life, she devised a wicked plan. Sneaking into the house one night, she poisoned the soup that Pendo had made for Musa, hoping to frame her and get her chased away from the village. The next morning, Pendo prepared the soup as usual, unaware of Zawadi's treachery. She set the bowl in front of Musa outside under a large tree near their beautiful traditional house. But just as he reached for it, Simba growled. Musa pulled back, startled. "I've lost my appetite," Musa muttered, pushing the bowl away. "Give it to the dog." Pendo, slightly confused, placed the bowl on the ground for Simba, who sniffed the soup before hesitantly lapping it up. Within minutes, Simba collapsed, letting out a pained whimper. Pendo's heart sank. "Simba!" she cried, rushing to his side. The dog, her childhood companion, was gone. Realization dawned. Someone had poisoned the food, and it wasn't hard to figure out who. Later that day, as the village gathered for their daily gossip session, Pendo arrived with Musa, now slightly stronger and no longer the arrogant peacock he once was. "I have something to say," Musa began, his voice strained but clear. "Zawadi, you are responsible for the death of our dog Simba. You poisoned my food, hoping I'd die, or worse, blame Pendo." The villagers gasped. Zawadi, wide-eyed, tried to flee, but the crowd blocked her path. Musa, still weakened, pointed a shaky finger at her. "You've disgraced yourself. You've lost everything." Zawadi, her face red with shame, was escorted out of the village. Musa then turned to Pendo, his voice softer, his pride finally shattered. "I've been blind, Pendo. I married you for your land, but you've given me something much more valuable. You cared for me when no one else did, not even those I thought loved me. I'm sorry." Pendo, as always, smiled. "It's not me you should thank, it's Simba." Musa, choking on his pride, nodded. "I'll make it right, I promise. But first, I'll learn to make my own soup." How often do we overlook the true value of loyalty while chasing fleeting pleasures? Are we willing to admit our mistakes before it's too late? Or do we let our pride consume us? When things fall apart, do we abandon the ones who've always been there for us? Or do we recognize their worth? What will it take for us to open our eyes to the people who love us for who we are, not for what we have? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and also check other similar stories on this channel. Please subscribe to support this channel. Cheers. Have a good one.